Hello, it's October 1st, which means it's time to start my SPOOKOPLATHON vlogs. So this year I'm going to be rolling as I go. Again, I did this last year and maybe the year before that, I can't remember. But, hi Murph. I'm very excited to get going with this one. I'm about to pick my first prompt and then I will let you know what I'm reading once I do that. I don't print out the board or do the real dice thing. I do it on my computer, so if that annoys you, I'm so sorry, but that's how we're going to do it this year, just because that's how we've done it in the years past and it really works well for me. So without further ado, let's see what my first prompt is going to be. So these are the dice. Let's roll them. A 3 and a 4, which is a 7. It adds it up for you. That's so nice. Okay, and coming over here, we always start on go. So then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Chance. Let's randomly generate a number between 1 and 22. 10. Come over here. And that is Michigan versus the Boys by Carrie S. Allen. Okay, so as you saw, I landed on the chance card for my first prompt. And I did that a bunch last time I did this readathon. So this year I actually made chance cards instead of just going through my DVR each time and randomly picking something. So I got Michigan versus the Boys by Carrie S. Allen, which I believe is a YA contemporary sports romance. Could be wrong. I will get it from my library and I will let you know how it is. And when I have more updates, we will come back and do this. But I'm really excited to start this readathon. This is always a really fun one for me. And if you are participating in the readathon, let me know down below if you have vlogs or anything. I would love to watch them. I just think this readathon is so fun, especially the rolling as you go portion of it, just because I've been such a mood reader lately and it's really helped me to like automatically know what I'm picking up next because I just pick another prompt and then I can just sort of like go where my heart leads me. So I'm very excited, but that's gonna be my first read of this readathon and I will let you know once I have started reading it. We're actually gonna roll once more because the book that I found is an ebook. So I'm gonna see if I can get an audiobook in here too. 7 again. So we'll go back to the board and we were on chance. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is Ghostface. Hello, so the prompt for Ghostface is to read a book that has a sound-related word in the series or the book title, because Ghostface is from Scream. So I have a couple options on here, and I'm going to see which, if any of them, have an audiobook, and I will get that audiobook, and I will listen to that audiobook, but I'll pop right back here in a second. Amazingly, a book that I have on hold for my library right now as an audiobook is called Archer's Voice, which I put on hold a long time ago because it's supposed to have really good like disability rep, and it's a romance, and I believe it's about a mute hero. So I'm gonna listen to that and I will let you know how I feel about these books once I read them. Look at those dogs. I have to go to work now, but this was so fun. I love this readathon. So I will read Michigan versus the Boys as an ebook. As we all know, reading things with my eyes takes me longer than listening to things because I listen to things all the time constantly while I'm doing stuff. So hopefully once I finish my Ghostface prompt, I can pick another prompt and get another audiobook and we can just keep it going like that, but we'll see how that works out. So yeah, I will talk to you soon. Hello. So it is now Thursday and predictably I did finish the audiobook I was listening to, Archer's Voice, yesterday. I ended up giving it 3 stars. So it's a contemporary romance following these 2 characters. It's Bree and Archer. Hi Murph. Archer does not speak anymore. He was in an accident when he was a child and you learn more about it as you go along. You also get flashbacks. Like his point of view is primarily him as a child, which I don't know if that's what didn't work for me really on this one or what exactly it was. I also wasn't super into the main character. Her name is Bree. She is from Ohio, but she has decided to spend some time just to get away from her real life after she suffers some sort of tragedy. She's going to this small town in Maine where she and her dad used to summer, I guess. And you learn more about obviously what happens with her, but she ends up getting a job as a waitress. She has a brief fling with like a local cop there named Travis, and Travis is actually Archer's cousin. And so she meets Archer right away and she thinks he's kind of rude because he doesn't talk to her. But then she finds out that he doesn't speak at all and she knows sign language because her dad was deaf. And so she is able to communicate with Archer with signs. I don't know, like he can hear, he just can't speak. So that sort of goes on for a little bit and then, you know, they fall in love, I guess. It goes from there. This book played too much with my emotions. And what I mean by that is like, it kept doing things that I really was like, if this book doesn't have a because it's not called like I mean, I think it is book class as romance, but like the subtitle is a love story. And all I could think about was like Me Before You and how that does not have a happy ending. And I was like, if this doesn't have a happy ending, I'm gonna lose it. Cause like, the romance was fine, but also like everyone's character arc is so, like, characters have huge arcs in like a paragraph, and that just really didn't work for me. Something about the way that the characters developed I didn't like, unfortunately. But I mean, I didn't dislike this book, but like it just, nothing worked for me. Nothing was like amazing. Like, and maybe I just had too high of expectations because it's got such good reviews. But for me, this was just kind of a like meh book, unfortunately. So I have also started Michigan versus the Boys. I'm not very far in. I think I've read like 2 chapters. But the premise of this one is it's this girl, Michigan, who lives in Michigan. And she plays hockey. She's going to be the assistant captain of the all-girls hockey team. And then they find out that their school actually cut funding for the girls hockey team. So I think what's going to happen is that she is going to try out for the boys team or get her like girls to play against the boys. I will say I read the rest of the synopsis on Goodreads, and the synopsis says that there's like an assault that happens. So this is sounding startlingly similar to another book about hockey that I read that I really loved. And so I'm curious. So it doesn't sound like, basically it just doesn't sound like the light and fluffy YA contemporary romance that I thought it would be. It sounds a little more hard-hitting than that, which is not a bad thing. I'm glad I was prepared, but we'll see how I feel about that one. I did go ahead and roll for my next audiobook, so I will play that footage now. So I got the prompt Bone, which is to read a book with a light colored cover. So it's like anything from white to tan. And I decided to read The 90s by Chuck Klosterman, which is a nonfiction book about the 90s, as you might imagine. I've started it. I started it yesterday while I was making dinner. I'm about 40% in at this point. It's okay. I thought about DNFing it, to be honest, at the first part, because the first bit is about like why Gen X is the best generation. And it's like very self-deprecating in the way that people who identify as Gen X tend to be, but it's very much like, we're not, like, baby boomers do this and we don't do that because we're too cool for it, and millennials complain about this, but that's the same thing that everyone's been complaining about forever. He doesn't even mention Gen Z, so I don't know when this book came out. I know it was at least post 2020 because he has since referenced 2020. So I don't know, but I thought that was interesting. It's fine. It's like a pop culture history of the 90s. And I've mentioned on the channel before that I was alive in the 90s, but I was a small child. He was born in the 70s, so the 90s were like his teenage years. I was born in the mid 90s. I was born in 95, so my teenage years were like the 2010s, basically. But yeah, he's talking about the 90s. He's talked about like how the 90s had a really big nostalgia for the 70s, and he goes into that 70s show and why that show worked, whereas they later tried to do that 80s show and why that show didn't really work. He also talks about like films in the 90s and how film culture was evolving, and the impact that like video stores like Blockbuster had on the way that people interacted with movies in the 80s, which changed the way that people like directed and made movies in the 90s. All of that is very interesting to me. I've read another book, I don't know who it's by, but it's called Bitch, a Manifesto, and I read it in high school, and I believe it was written at least in the late 90s, if not in the early 2000s, but it talks a lot about like women in the 90s, women and girls really in the 90s who were like really notorious for things. Like there's a chapter on Courtney Love. Now everyone thought that she killed Kurt Cobain, and I'm not going to argue with you about the discourse because I don't really know anything about it except for I don't think that happened. So anyways, but she also talks about like Prozac Nation, and he talks about Prozac Nation, and which is Elizabeth Wurtzel's, is it a memoir? It could be. I don't think I ever read Prozac Nation, but how like so many people, I know it's a movie with Christina Ricci that I have seen, but so many people disliked that book because they were like, God, she's like insufferable to like listen to. And she basically did an interview where she said she did that on purpose because having depression is insufferable, and she wanted people to like really have to deal with what she was dealing with in her head. So she purposefully made the book read to make her very unlikable, but she was like, but this is what it's like, which I thought was fascinating because I do remember I had a friend who read it who hated it because she couldn't stand that, the way that she was like talking about herself, and she thought it was like very self-centered. So anyways, the more you know. But he also talks about like the presidential election of Bill Clinton over H.W. Bush and stuff like that, and like why it's a lot of like a retrospective on his youth, but not like unique to him, on like the culture that was happening around him. He's talked about like college football. Apparently something big happened in college football. I don't really understand that part because I don't really care. But all of that to say, it's interesting. I don't know that I'm gonna give it like a rave review. I'll probably give it 3 or 4 stars depending on how the rest of it goes. But I'm definitely more interested in some aspects of it than others. Oh, what I was gonna say is I want to learn more about things that I was alive for that I don't really remember, like recent history. I feel like I'm pretty, well, I'm pretty on par with my peers on like more distant history, like World War I, World War II, the Civil War. Like I feel like with my peers who are not historians, I feel like I know the high points and the low points pretty well, but I don't know a ton about like, I don't know, the Iranian missile crisis and stuff like that. So like, it's been interesting learning about that from the perspective of someone who was like a teenager when it was going on. I hope that makes sense. Or like in their early 20s, someone who was like very youthful and like involved in the creation of that culture or like the consumption of that culture, I suppose. So that's what I'm reading right now. When I finish it, I will roll for another audiobook. When I finish Michigan versus the Boys, I may or may not roll for another ebook. I probably won't purposely try to get another ebook just because they take me so much longer to read because I can't like multitask while reading an ebook. I have to just read it. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. So anyways, I'm enjoying it. All right. I haven't got very far into Michigan versus the Boys, but it's fine so far. And I will let you know when I have another update, hopefully soon. I am going out of town this weekend. My parents and I are going, well, Matt and I are going to meet my parents and like some of my cousins and my uncle at the Arkansas Razorbacks game. So we're going to go down there. They're playing Tennessee. My dad is from Tennessee, so he and his brother are Tennessee fans. And then like his brother has always lived in Arkansas. I grew up in Texas, doesn't really matter. But my parents are like pseudo Arkansas fans because I went to Arkansas, so they care about Arkansas only when I care about it. But my cousins all grew up in Arkansas. And one thing that I really miss about living in Arkansas is everyone there roots for the Razorbacks. Like everyone cares. They don't have any professional sports teams, so everyone is a Hogs fan. Even if you didn't go to college at all, even if you didn't go to college there, everyone likes the Razorbacks, which is just so, it's just such a fun like cultural thing to be a part of, I guess. And you can say that that's like stupid or whatever, but it was very like, touching is the wrong word, but maybe that's how I feel. I don't know. So we're going back there. We're going to go tailgate. I don't know how much reading I'm going to get done. That's what I'm trying to tell you. But I will check in with you. I think I'm running this vlog till Monday because that'll be a week. Or maybe I'll just do till Sunday and then on Monday I'll start a new one. That way we can be like sort of back on schedule. Maybe that's what I'll do. But anyways, last night we had a movie night. We watched Friday the 13th with some of our friends and we did the projector in the backyard. I meant to take a clip of it, but I did not do it. Murphy hears the ice maker and is losing his mind. But yeah, so I will update you when I have another update soon. I have to go, but I'll talk to you soon. Hello, it's Sunday. I just like an hour or so ago got back from Fayetteville because we went down to the football game to see my parents and watch the game. And the Razorbacks actually won, which was very surprising. My uncle was not very happy, but we had a great time. It was a really good game. But I wanted to give you some reading updates. So I am about halfway through. Have I even talked about this yet? I don't know that I've talked about it yet. So I finished The 90s by Chuck Klosterman. Is that his name? Hi, Boba. And I gave it 3 stars, I think, maybe 4. I don't remember. It was fine, but like nothing really amazing. It definitely is like a passion project of his, and it was interesting to like get things from his point of view, but it was mostly just like an overview of mostly like pop culture things that happened in the 90s, and comparing it to how like certain things like if they even would happen today, or like why they couldn't have happened in the 70s, why they did happen in the 90s, you know what I mean? So it was interesting, but not like the best thing I've ever read by a long shot. So I did go ahead and roll again, and in my new roll, what did I get? Okay, so I did roll again, and I went ahead and I got Ghost Tour, which is a book that has a historical element. And I ended up picking the book Secret Identity by Alex Segura, which is a 2022 release, I believe. It's part of a series now. Based on how I'm feeling about it, I don't know if I'm gonna keep reading the series. I wanted to DNF it like a little bit in, but I picked it because it's set in the 70s. So that's the historical element. It's not set present day, it's set in the 70s, but it's like a noir mystery. I don't know that it's considered mystery thriller, but it is like a noir mystery. And it's about this woman named Carmen, who is Cuban American, and she is from Miami, but she left Miami to move to New York to work as a secretary at this comic book company because she wants to write comics. And at the beginning of the story, she's been trying to like break out and write some comics, but her boss is like a misogynistic prick and he's not letting her. Basically, he's basically like, what would people think if I published one of your comics? They just think that I'm sleeping with you. Great. And so she works with one of her coworkers. He like comes to her and is like, hey, our boss needs me to write a comic because something got pulled, so can you help me? And they like work together on this first project, but it becomes very apparent that he's like stealing her ideas, and he doesn't put her name on the project at all. So she's not gonna get any of the credit for it. So that's what's happening there. And then we know that something's happened to her dad back in Miami, but we don't know what it was. And she also is a lesbian, and she had this sort of relationship with this woman named Catherine Hall. And Catherine Hall has now come to New York City, and she doesn't want to see Catherine Hall, so we don't really know exactly what's going on there. That's like part of the mystery element of this, I suppose. Honestly, I'm not really into comics. I'm not really into comics, so that's part of why I like don't really care. I don't really like superhero things. It's a superhero comic that they're working on, and there are sections in the book that are comic sections, which is actually, I'm listening to it as an audiobook, and the audio for that is really like cool. Like there's sound effects and all sorts of stuff, which is neat. But again, it's just not something I really care about. So I am tentatively interested in finding out what like the connections between all the characters are, because there's other things that are happening. Like there's been a murder, a body found, Carmen found a body, and we're not exactly sure what's going on with that. And also Carmen's getting hints of like unreliable narrator-ness. So I'm not really sure how to feel about that, but I'm about 45% of the way through, so not quite halfway. I did really dislike it when I was first reading it, but I told myself I was gonna give it 100 pages. And I'm glad that I did. Like, I'm intrigued now, but I still I just don't really care about the characters. And like, I don't love the setting. I don't love the conflict. I don't love the not that I don't love the plot, but like the elements I don't care about. Which kind of leads me into an update for the other thing that I'm reading, which is Michigan versus the Boys. And that one is the hockey book. And it's darker than I was expecting it to be. But I think I did talk about how it says something about an assault in the Goodreads description that I didn't read initially. So I was prepared for it to go a little darker. But we're following this girl, Michigan, and her school's hockey team is canceled. So she tries out for the boys team, and she ends up making the boys team, but all the boys hate her. And so they're basically like hazing her. And they're just getting like progressively more violent towards her. And I'm really worried that they're gonna rape her. That's what I think is going to happen. I don't know, I haven't gotten to that point yet, but it's like giving me anxiety to read. I think it's a good book, and I think it's well written. I don't really care about hockey, and there's a lot of detailed descriptions. Like, it'll go through her game and talk about like all of the shots that she takes, all of the things that she does, and you know, I don't care. But I am just over halfway in that one. So there is like a nice cute subplot with her and this guy Jack, who was on the boys swim team, and the boys swim team also got cut, but he swims regionally for like a regional team, so he's still swimming, and they are like dating now, which is cute. And I don't know how that's gonna play out. I don't know what else is gonna happen with them. But then I think I mentioned that like her other teammates from her girls hockey team, like 3 of them tried out for like another team that's like an hour away that she couldn't go to because she doesn't have a car and her mom wasn't gonna drive her. So there's that. Another one of her teammates ends up going to transferring to a boarding school so that she can continue to play hockey, and then the other teammates basically just give up hockey. But Michigan didn't want to do that, and she couldn't do any of the other things. So she tried out for the boys team, and that's why she's on the boys team. And they hate her. So that's what I'm reading. I don't know if I'm gonna finish it today. I would like to, but we'll see. I am gonna cook dinner tonight, but it's like 3 o'clock, so I probably won't start that until like 5. I might start a little earlier because I am kind of hungry. And I think the meal I'm making like peanut noodles. It's gonna take like an hour because I'm making sweet potato noodles instead of like noodles. So we'll see how that goes, but it's gonna be like a peanut stir fry dish, which I'm excited about. I think it'll be good. I have like tofu and veggies, like carrots and onions and broccoli. So it'll be tasty. Marvel was so bad in the car today. I don't know what it was, but it's only like a 3-hour drive, and normally he's chill. He just lays in the back seat. Would not do it today. He kept crawling under the my center console of my car is like a shelf and it can bend down or go up. And so he can crawl under it apparently. And that's what he was doing. And that was very annoying. So Matt had to hold him on his lap for a lot of the ride, which I know is not like the safest thing to do, but it's safer than him crawling and getting under the pedals. So, but yeah, I will let you know when I have other updates, and I will pick another book. Probably not until I finish the audiobook I'm listening to. I think that's when I'm going to do my next prompt. But I'm enjoying reading this ebook. I read it this morning. I read it last night. I read it yesterday morning. I read it Friday morning. Like, I've just been reading a little in bed before I get up and a little bit before I go to sleep. And it's just been really fun. If you can't tell, I'm exhausted from this weekend. So I will let you know if I have another update, and I will close out this vlog at some point. Hello. It is about 8:45 on Sunday night. So I think I'm going to wrap up this vlog for the week. I am going to pick my next book because I did finish the 2 books that I was reading today. So I finished Michigan versus the Boys around 4:30. I ended up giving it 5 stars. I actually, it really made me mad, and I felt very vengeful, but it wasn't unsatisfying in any way. It had a very satisfying conclusion for me. It also, in my opinion, without spoiling anything, I don't think it went too far with what happened, which was my biggest concern. And the author did a really good job of building the tension and the gut feeling that you had. And I really resonated with Michigan as a character, and her feeling with her friendships, and just the struggle of trying to pick. Obviously I never played hockey. I don't know if that's obvious, but I never played hockey. But her desire to have this thing that she loves as a part of her life, and then just all the obstacles that kept stacking up against her. Again, I was very satisfied with the ending. I was really, really frustrated for a lot of this book, but I do feel like it was frustration in an important way, if that makes sense. And also, again, without spoiling things, I think sometimes with storylines like this, the conclusions can tend to be a little cheesy. If you saw the movie, I never read the book, but I know it's based on a book, but the movie Moxie has this not hollow girl power thing, but not more shallow, I guess. And this book felt deeper and less cheesy. And I've read a couple other books that it kind of reminds me of, so I'm saving those for if I do another read likes video at some point. That's how I do those. I just as I read things, if they remind me of other things that I've read or watched or whatever, sort of how I just start compiling a list. And when I have 5 things to compare, that's when I make one of those videos. And apparently it takes me a while because I think I did one just recently, but I think the last one I did before that was 2 or 3 years ago. So I read that. I gave it 5 stars. I actually loved it. I'm so glad that I read it and that I pushed through, and I really enjoyed my read of it. And then I just finished Secret Identity, which is one that I was saying that I kind of wanted to DNF at one point. I finished it, and I'm glad that I did. I did enjoy the way that it wrapped up. I will say I don't know what I expected it to be about, but it is about the comic book industry, like I mentioned, and it's about this woman, Carmen, who is working. She wants to be a writer. No one's taking her seriously, and she gets this opportunity to basically ghostwrite something, and then people start dying. And so that's what happens. And then it's one thing that I thought was kind of confusing about it is the timeline. It is a linear timeline, but I could not for the life of me figure out how much time was supposed to be passing. Because at one point she's got this not even ex-girlfriend, but this person that she used to know in Miami who has come back in her life. And that happens. And then the next time we see that character, she says that she hasn't heard from that character in months. But in my head, it was a week later. So I was confused about that. But anyways, I gave it 3.5 stars. I rounded up to 4 on Goodreads because I did enjoy it. And I thought it was well written. And I would consider reading the second book in that series, but it's not high on my priority list. I'll have to look at what it's even about, because the way this ended, I don't know how a sequel would even really be possible. I think I have a sneaking suspicion how it will be possible. But I don't exactly know. I think it'll probably be in the same world, but a different person, if that makes sense, that it follows, probably in the comic book industry is what I'm thinking. So the other thing that was weird about this, and maybe if people are bigger comic book fans than me, like I know who Stan Lee is, but like that's about the extent of my comic book knowledge. And there's a lot of name dropping in this. And once they dropped Stan Lee, I realized that it was probably all real people. And I know like Silver Surfer's a real comic thing. They talk about Marvel, they could talk about DC. So I don't know if Triumph Comics is a real thing or not. I think it's not, and I'm not going to look into it. But I think that's like part of how they were like grounding the world, is that they were having these other huge comic book brands be like kind of competitors. So it was interesting, but again, ultimately not something that I'm like super interested in, kind of like with the hockey stuff. But sorry, I am going to pick my next read, and we're just going to see what I get. So I'm going to roll the dice here and then show you on the board that I have on my laptop what we're going to read next. Okay. So we got a 4. And last time we ended up on Ghost Tour. So if we go 1, 2, 3, 4, Shirley Jackson. So let's see what I'm gonna read. Okay, so I double checked, and the Shirley Jackson prompt is to either read a book by Shirley Jackson, which I don't have any on my TBR. I know eventually I want to read A Haunting of Hill House, but it's not like high on my priority list, to be honest. But the other prompt for that is to read a book that has a building on the cover. So I'm going to read A Fever in the Heartland by Timothy Egan, which is a nonfiction book about the KKK. And so it's supposed to be about like the KKK's rise in popularity in, is it Indiana? Yeah, Indiana. And it's about this specific guy who ended up becoming, what do they call him, Grand Dragon? Yeah, so that's like the head guy of the KKK, I guess. I'm gonna learn more about it, I suppose. And it's about a woman who like was able to stop the KKK's progress, I guess. The subtitle is the Ku Klux Klan's plot to take over America and the woman who stopped them. And her name is Madge Oberholzer. So I don't know anything about this. I don't know anything about her. I know enough about the KKK just from like living in the US, especially growing up in the South. Like I've always known about the KKK. But I'm excited to read this. Again, my word of the year is learn, and I am trying to learn things. So that's what I will start my vlog next week reading. But this is going to be the end of this vlog. So if you want to see me read A Fever in the Heartland and hear my thoughts on it, and then also find out what I read next, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Comment below if you've read any of these books and how you felt about them. Also comment like what you're reading for SPOOKOPLATHON, if you're even participating, or just like what you've been reading this week. I love hearing from you, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!